In the movies, the knight is a hero in shining armor. In reality, that same man dreamed of the sweet release of death. And in the next 10 minutes, you'll understand exactly why. The image is indelible. A warrior in shining armor, a jousting champion, a defender of maidens, all wrapped in a code of chivalry that promised honor and virtue. We've been sold a fantasy of polished metal and heroic deeds. The knight is the superhero of his time, a walking fortress of righteousness and steel. But as always, we're here to open that fortress and see what's inside. And what we find is not a comic book hero. It's a man, a sweaty, bruised, half-suffocated man, trapped in a metal prison he has put on himself. Because plate armor, that marvel of medieval engineering, wasn't just protection. It was torture, an oven in summer, a freezer in winter, and a death trap in the mud of a battlefield. Tonight, we're going to explore the brutal reality of wearing that armor. We're going to feel its weight, smell its stench, and understand why in the heat of battle, sometimes the sweetest release wasn't victory, but a quick death that would free you from your own shell. Do you think you could have been a knight? Before you polish your imaginary sword, let me put you inside the armor, and I warn you, it's hot, and it smells very, very bad. Forget putting on a jacket. Dressing a knight for battle wasn't an act. It was a ritual, a long and methodical process that required the help of at least one squire and turned a man into a living metal statue, layer by layer. First, the base. You wear a linen shirt and breeches, your underwear. Over that, you put on a gambeson. Imagine the thickest, most suffocating padded jacket you can conceive, stuffed with wool or cloth. It's your first line of defense, designed to absorb the impact of blows. You're already sweating, and we haven't even gotten to the metal. Then comes the chainmail. Thousands of small interlinked iron rings forming a shirt, leggings, and a hood. It weighs a ton, between 15 and 20 kg, and all that weight rests directly on your shoulders. Mail is excellent for stopping the cuts of a sword, but useless against the blunt force of a mace or the sharp point of an arrow. And now the star of the show, the plate armor. This isn't a single piece. It's a steel puzzle that must be assembled around you. Greaves for your shins, cuisses for your thighs, tassets to protect your hips and groin, then the breastplate and backplate. The two large pieces that form your torso, vambraces and braces for your arms, and finally, the gauntlets, articulated steel gloves that hopefully still allow you to hold your sword. Each piece is tied and buckled with leather straps. By the time they're done, you're locked in. The total weight of your equipment can exceed 30 or even 40 kilograms. It's not dead weight. It's distributed over your entire body, but still, every movement is an effort. Getting up from the ground if you fall is an acrobatic feat that requires help. Finally, the helm. They place a padded cap, the arming cap, on your head, and then the helm is lowered over you. The world is reduced to a narrow slit for your eyes. Your peripheral vision disappears. Your hearing is muffled by the metal, and the only clear sound is that of your own breath, panting and amplified, echoing in the small steel chamber. The air inside becomes stale and hot almost instantly. There is no ventilation. It's like breathing inside a metal can on a summer day. And this is just the beginning. You haven't mounted your horse yet. You haven't entered battle yet. Now that you're inside, let's talk about how it feels. First, the heat. The midday sun beats down on your armor, turning it into a portable oven. The heat is suffocating, relentless. Sweat soaks the gambeson, which becomes even heavier and more restrictive. Dehydration is your most immediate enemy. In a long battle, you can lose liters of water, leading to heat exhaustion, cramps, and a hate stroke that can be as lethal as a lance. Then, the cold. In a winter campaign, the metal becomes a conductor of cold, robbing you of your body heat. Rain seeps through the cracks, soaking your layers of clothing, and the risk of hypothermia is real. Movement is a constant struggle. Yes, plate armor was ingeniously articulated, allowing for more movement than you might imagine. You could walk, ride a horse, even run short distances, but every movement required extra effort. It was like exercising with weights all over your body all day long. The exhaustion was cumulative, a deep fatigue that settled into your muscles and bones. Breathing is a luxury. Inside the closed helm, carbon dioxide builds up. You feel dizzy, short of breath. The panic of claustrophobia is a constant companion, and if the visor gets stuck in the middle of a battle, you are blind and at the mercy of the enemy. And the smell. Oh, the smell. Imagine the smell of a gym locker room that hasn't been cleaned in a month. Now put it inside a hot metal can. That's you. After hours of marching and combat, the inside of your armor is an ecosystem of sweat, dirt, and fear, and there's no way to properly clean it in the field. You get used to your own stench, but that doesn't mean it stops being horrible. All this misery is magnified tenfold on the battlefield. The cavalry charge, that glorious image of knights advancing in a perfect line, was a thundering and terrifying chaos. You're on the back of a war horse, a huge and powerful animal, also partially armored. The ground trembles, the noise is deafening. The neighing of horses, the shouts of men, the thunder of thousands of hooves. Through the slit of your helm, you can barely see what's in front of you. You trust your horse and the men around you. If you are unhorsed, and many were, the real nightmare begins. Falling to the ground with 30 kilograms of steel on you is like being hit by a car. The impact leaves you breathless, stunned, and now you're on the ground. You're a turtle on its back. If the field is muddy, like at Agincourt, you sink. The weight of your own armor becomes your enemy. Struggling to get up in the slippery mud, while other men and horses trample you, is a desperate fight for survival. Many knights didn't die from a sword wound, but drowned in the mud, unable to get back on their feet. If you're on the ground, you are vulnerable. The enemy infantry, the men you despise as peasants, now have the advantage. They won't try to pierce your breastplate. They'll go for the gaps, the armpits, the groin, the neck, the visor of your helm. They will use long, thin daggers called misericords, named for the mercy strike, to find them. Or worse, they'll use maces and war hammers. A blow from a mace to your helm won't pierce it, but the resulting concussion will leave you unconscious or dead. Your skull will fracture inside your own protection. And even if you're not wounded, the simple act of being on the ground can kill you. The exhaustion, the lack of air, the panic, and the heat. A fallen knight under the midday sun could literally be cooked alive inside his own armor. For a knight, death in battle was honorable, but capture was a catastrophe. If you were captured, you weren't treated like a modern prisoner of war. You were treated like a financial asset. Your value lay in the ransom your family could pay, and the price was exorbitant, often equivalent to years of income from your lands. While waiting for the ransom, you could spend months or even years in a dungeon with your armor removed, exposed to diseases and the cruelty of your captors. And if your family couldn't pay, your fate was grim. You could be sold as a serf, forced to work the lands of the man you were trying to kill, or you could simply be executed, your value reduced to zero. For many knights, this humiliation, this helplessness, was worse than death. The code of chivalry demanded fighting to the end. Surrendering, being captured, was a stain on your honor. That is why many preferred a quick death on the battlefield, to the slow agony of captivity and shame. But a knight's armor wasn't just for war. It was also a status statement. In jousts and tournaments, your armor was your business card. It was engraved, gilded, adorned with plumes and emblems. It was a way to display your wealth and lineage. But even here, it was a burden. Wearing jousting armor, even heavier and more restrictive than battle armor, for hours under the sun, just for the honor of being knocked off your horse with a lance, was an exercise in masochistic endurance. The armor separated you from the world, turned you into a symbol, a walking statue, but it also isolated you. It was a physical and social barrier between you and the rest of humanity. So let's go back to that morning at Agincourt. You are standing in the mud with an empty stomach, your body exhausted and sick. The rain has soaked your gambeson, which now weighs twice as much. The cold seeps through the steel. You can barely see through the slit of your helm, and in front of you is an army that outnumbers you, ready to kill you. In that moment, what do you feel? Glory? Honor? Or do you feel the crushing weight of 30 kilograms of metal, the stench of your own sweat, the claustrophobia of your helm, and an overwhelming desire for it all to end, one way or another? The life of a knight was not the fantasy we've been told. It was a life of extreme discomfort, constant danger, and a burden, both physical and social, that was almost unbearable. His armor, his greatest symbol of power, was also his greatest weakness. They were not invincible. They were men trapped in steel cages, fighting not only the enemy but their own equipment against the heat, the cold, the mud, and exhaustion. The next time you see the image of a knight in shining armor, look closer. Look at the dents, the worn straps, the narrow slits, and remember the man who was inside. The man who, in the worst moments of battle, perhaps prayed not for victory, but for a quick and honorable release from the prison he himself wore. Yeah,